It's nice to see you all. Welcome. So, I usually have some sense of what I'm going to say, but today I have zero sense of what I'm going to say, which is interesting because that's sort of what life is like, if we're honest. So we have no idea, none really, about what this really is, about what's really going to happen, about what it is at all. But we like to have, we think we like to have an idea. I would say that that's really the essence of bondage, though, is this compulsive grasping for something in advance. You notice it's always in advance. It's like there's always a buffer, or we imagine there's a buffer between us and life. So this buffer gives us this totally false sense of security, which is actually a prison. So on the one hand, we think this is what we need. Now, this is easy to say, but the second you might you might agree with this, you might disagree with it. If you disagree with it, then we can explore that. But you might agree with it. You might look and see that in your experience that this is true, that you cling to some kind of false security. You want to know in advance what is. You want to have some sense that you can control the future, and that you're going to find your okayness there in that control, in that buffer. And then you might also look and see that in your actual experience, this is also the prison that you struggle with, because you're always buffered. You never perceive that you're fully in contact. It's like you're always a little bit out of sync with reality. So then you say, if only I could really live, not this false sort of thing that I do just trying to get through, but to really live, to be fully alive. If only I could really live, then I would be happy. But then you look and see, well, I've got this buffer. I'm never really fully in contact. So you might look and see that this is true. You can see, okay, well, the thing that I'm clinging to for security is the thing that immiserates me. And you might agree with that. But then the second we pull the rug out from under you, you say, now I know what the solution is. I just got to pull the rug out from under me, and then I'm going to be happy. Then I'll really be alive. Then I'll have what I really want. And then we do that, and you say, wait, no, this isn't what I want at all. So the question, it only flashes on my screen. Hold on. Let me see what it says here. Question: in which circumstance is there more thing that means? Well, it says futile ground for awakening hardship or good fortune. So I don't know if you mean futile or fertile. It's good either way. Hopefully I'll get back to that. Yeah, fertile. Great question. And so I would say, so the question again, in what circumstances is there the most fertile ground for, well, anything, sort of how it's phrased. And you can see this is what we're always looking for. We're always looking for what is the right circumstance, the right conditions, the right whatever, so that then something good will happen. So I can avoid something bad and get something good. And we're back to the same puzzle that I was just describing, which is that we see that I mean, I think it helps just to be really honest, okay? Because we can kind of bullshit ourselves. We're pretty good at it, and tell ourselves that no, everything's kind of okay. I'm okay. It's okay. But let's be honest, that's not true. That's not true. You know, I mean, like, you're not satisfied. You're not. You know, we're not. You know, we're not. We're not. If you were fully satisfied, you would not be here. And that that's fine. You know, that's not bad. I'm not pointing a finger and saying shame on you. I mean, that's just like it's good that you can see that. It's good that you can be honest because, well, I mean, I say good. I don't know. I mean, the alcohol industry is perfectly happy to accept your money. You know, they'll keep accepting your money, but um, but it's helpful, I think, to be, and from my perspective, it's helpful to see and acknowledge that I'm unhappy, I'm dissatisfied, I have moments in which I perceive that it's okay, but those are just sort of punctuations, and most of the time there's a kind of despair or a sense of longing for something, a longing for full contact, for reality, for fulfillment, for uh, something that is greater than what we perceive our experience to be. And so then I say that it's useful then just to be really honest and just, you know, okay, this is how it is. This is what my perception of my experience is. My perception of my experience is I'm not all that happy really. And so then we can start to actually take a look and see, well, what is it that is, what am I doing to make myself unhappy? Well, this is something I could say. I had actually thought of this throughout the week. Okay, so we um, so we can play this game of I'm unhappy, poor me, and uh, and it's some external circumstance that's causing this. In which case, why bother? Really, why bother? Why bother giving any attention whatsoever to that? Because that's not you're totally powerless in that. You see, that's just I'm a victim. Boo hoo, woe is me. It goes nowhere. There's nothing, no benefit to be had in that. It's just round and round. Poor me, boo hoo, woe is me. It's so unfair. I never get I never get a lucky break. The world's out to get me. And there's nothing good to come from that because you are totally disempowered. There's absolutely nothing you can do because it's all about everything else. It's about everybody else. It's about all these systems. It's about life. It's about everything that's out to get you, and poor you the victim who doesn't have any power. So there you are. What's the point in giving any attention to that? Because it's just hopeless. It's just like you're just in a whirlpool. You're just getting sucked down. There's nothing there for you. There's no hope, none whatsoever. Other than you know, you can pray that. Uh, so maybe there is some use in that. You can, if you're willing to surrender completely, then you can pray to something beyond your limited perception of reality. So that's a possibility. But in general, people don't do that, right? We want this power to control, to keep the buffer so that we'll stay safe and secure. And then we just want to look and see, oh, poor me. Life's so unfair. I'm a victim. So we're just stuck in this sort of miserable thing. But what I'm proposing is when we're honest about it, then we can start to ask a more intelligent question, which is, what is it? I say more intelligent. Let's just say more useful, more selfishly useful question, which is, what is it that I'm doing to generate and maintain this? So what if I was to just assume, okay, because if I'm making an assumption. I'm making an assumption that I'm a victim in life. I'm separate, and life's out to get me, and life's not fair, and yada yada yada. So what if instead of making that assumption, I make a different assumption? It's like I'm going to be like a scientist. I'm going to use a scientific method. I'm going to start with a hypothesis. Okay, I'm going to test it. So I'm looking and I'm saying, okay, this thing that I've been doing, this is not working out very well for me. I'm not happy with this. I'm not happy with this situation. I see now, a little bit. My eyes have been open and I see what I've been doing. I've been playing this game where I'm trying to keep this security buffer, and I want to have it both ways. Okay, I want to have the security buffer so I can stay safe. I want to have good things happen, but then it's never really happening, and so then I'm just going to blame external things. And I can see finally I'm willing to be honest enough. Okay, that's not really working out. It's just not. It's just miserable. Okay. So now I'm going to be like a scientist. I'm going to apply the scientific method. I'm going to start with a hypothesis, and my hypothesis is, and I'm going to list out what are my assumptions. Well, my assumption is I'm going to assume, what if instead of what I've been believing, what if instead actually I have what if I'm not a victim? What if I'm the perpetrator? What if I'm the one who's been doing this to myself? So that's going to be my assumption. And now I'm going to look to see, what is it that I'm doing? And I want to basically catalog everything that I do that maintains this prison. Because, I mean, let me add, okay, so let me raise your hand. I can't see everybody, so you have to keep your hand up for, well, no, most people turn their camera off. Okay, so raise your hand if you have never, ever perceived that you were in a prison. Not like a literal prison, but a figurative prison in your life. Raise your hand if you've never perceived that you were trapped in a prison. Okay, nobody's raising their hand. So either because you have perceived that you've been trapped in a prison, or because you're just too afraid to admit that you haven't. Okay, so it's sort of universal. Every human being has this. Nearly every human being seems to have this sense of I'm trapped in this prison. And we want to escape. We think we want to escape. We think we want to escape, but we're not actually honest enough to look and see, what is this really? What is this prison actually? Because again, we want to have it both ways. We want to keep our false buffer of security, and we want to just hope for.
Joey, yeah. I want to ask you, what do you mean by buffer, by the word buffer?
Okay, so a buffer is it's an intermediate zone between two things. So if I have a perception that I'm here and life is over there, then the buffer is this area between me and life. So it's what allows me to have a sense of that I have some kind of security from life. Like life is not, life has its claws out, okay, but it's at a slight distance. I have the sense it's at a slight distance versus if I don't have the buffer, then It just, my perception is that life is sinking its claws into me. So we can get really honest and we can just start to take a look and see what is it that I'm doing to construct and maintain this prison. Again, just applying the scientific method, starting with this hypothesis that I am the one who's doing it. Because I can see that the other way of being a victim, that's not working out for me. It has really very little, nothing there for me. So I'm just going to be willing, at least for now, to abandon that. I don't want to live like that. So now I'm going to start from this new, I'm going to have a hypothesis now. My hypothesis is that I'm the one who has constructed this prison. I'm the one who maintains the prison. And now I want to take a look and see, is this so? Can I find evidence for this? So I'm wanting to look and see, what is there evidence for this? Or is there evidence that disproves it? So if I can find some external prison or prison guard, then I may have just disproven my hypothesis. But I have to be really well, I have to really investigate thoroughly. I can't just I have to have proof that this is so. I can't just take my thoughts to be the proof, right? Because I can think anything. People believe, this is an interesting thing, right? People believe all kinds of things. So you've got some people who believe that Jesus is the supreme Lord. And then you've got a whole bunch of other people who say Jesus is not the supreme Lord. Allah is the supreme Lord. And then you've got a whole bunch of other people who say, no, it's not, it's neither Jesus nor is it Allah. It's whoever, it's whoever their supreme Lord is. And then you got some other people who say, there is no supreme Lord. You all are crazy. So you got all these people who believe all these things that are seemingly in opposition to one another. So if their thoughts were all correct, how could that be? How could it be that Jesus is supreme Lord and Allah is supreme Lord and there is no supreme Lord? How could that be? Or let's take it out of a religious context. You got some people who think that I don't really know that many sports teams, unfortunately, but let's say the St. Louis Cardinals, it's an American baseball team. They think that my mom being among them think that the St. Louis Cardinals, the best team ever, best team. No other team is good. It's the best team. And then you got some other people who say, no. The Red Sox, Boston Red Sox, the best team. Okay. They can't both be right. They could both be right if they were just saying, in my opinion, they're the best team, but that's not what they're saying. If you know a baseball fan, you know that that's not what they're saying. They're saying, no, really, absolutely. In the absolute sense, this is the greatest team. So they can't both be right. So we believe things, we have thoughts, and there are other people who believe other things that are in opposition to what we believe. Not only that, but it's actually worse than that. We believe within ourselves, we believe things that are in opposition to one another. So we cannot just take our thoughts to be proof of anything, because we can think anything. Can think anything at all. I mean, people invent religions, and then they just invent things, and then they get people to believe in it. So we can't just take our thoughts to be true. Can't take our thoughts to be proof of anything. That's another thing. I think I've mentioned this before. So when I was in high school, the school brought in a stage hypnotist once, and this stage hypnotist got volunteers from the audience, my peers, to come up on stage and be hypnotized. And I don't remember all of what they did, but at one point I remember they were galloping around, believing that they were horses racing one another. Okay, so you know, we can believe all kinds of things. You have people who believe things. They, you know, we say they're experiencing a psychotic episode, right? What is psychosis? It's when somebody experiences something that the rest of us don't, right? So they say, look, Jesus is right here in front of me talking to me. And everybody else says, I don't see Jesus in front of you. So then we say, well, they're having a psychotic episode. So you can think, well, that couldn't happen to you. How do you know it's not happening to you? Maybe I am an appearance in your psychotic episode. See? So we can't believe any of these things, you see, or the things that we think we can believe in, the things we are habituated to taking to be proof of something. We can't actually take those to be proof of anything. So we have to look in a different way. Because the temptation is to say, well, look, of course I'm in prison because of other people, right? That's the temptation, or because of circumstances. Say, look, I'm in chronic pain. It's because of this thing that happened. How dare you tell me that even suggest to me that this is not the case. I know this is true, and I'm not the prison warden. The prison warden is the pain, or the prison warden is life itself. I'm just the poor victim. Poor me. You got the wrong guy locked up. So that's the temptation. Temptation is to say, what choice do I have? This is just the circumstances I was born into. If I was born into different circumstances, it would be a different story. But look at me, you know, I wasn't born with a silver spoon in my mouth. If I had millions of dollars, things would be different. If I had been born with great intelligence, things would be different. If I'd been born with great skill or talent, things would be different. If I'd been born in a different country at a different time, things would be different. So I'm a victim of circumstance. It's a temptation. But we can look and see, well, what is the actual, what are we talking about though? You see, then we're just back to circumstances. Then we're saying that circumstances, we're victims of circumstance. Our happiness, our okayness, our very life is determined by circumstance. Which is what I'm saying. Let's explore the possibility of this new hypothesis, which is that that's not true. This new hypothesis is that we are not prisoners of any circumstance. We are not prisoners of any circumstance. That includes no person, place, or thing. No, we are not prisoners of time. We are not prisoners of place. This is the hypothesis. The hypothesis is that we are only prisoners of our own doing. We are only prisoners of our own doing. So we want to get clear on what it is that we're doing that constructs and maintains the prison, because the hypothesis is that when we get clear on this, then we can stop doing that. then we can choose freedom. We can choose unconditional freedom. Freedom that does not depend upon circumstance, does not depend upon any of these things. So so we have to be careful, because otherwise we're going to fall easily into this trap of going right back to circumstances and saying, oh yeah, but it's circumstance. I can't because of circumstance. It is because of circumstance. So if we're to really test this out, we have to just be very, very observant and really just observe. Because if we're, at least at this point, I think we really have to just observe, because the habit of there's such a web of this subtle conditional way of perceiving. Okay, so that it gets so subtle that if we leap into it prematurely, we're going to find that we've used some thought or belief or circumstances, our evidence. So we have to really just observe. And so what I find, and I'll invite you to do the same, is just to start right now observing your experience. Just observe and see. Do you even know for sure what this is? Do you even know for sure if this is good or bad? Do you even know for sure if this is up or down? What do you know for sure? And if you really are honest, you'll start to see you can't know anything for sure, not, at least not at the level that we've accustomed ourselves to thinking of what knowing is. Okay, so we are accustomed to thinking that we know something. How? Because we believe it. Isn't that so? We think we know something just because we believe it. I mean, it just kind of comes down to that. How do you know your name? How do you know where you live? How do you know how old you are? How do you know anything? Anything at all? How do you know what happened to you when you were 5 years old? How do you know what happened to you when you were 15 years old? How do you know what happened to you yesterday? How do you know what happened to you this morning? How do you know what happened to you 5 minutes ago? What is your proof of this? Every single time it comes back to, well, because that's what I believe. It's what I believe. It's the only proof. If you really hear what I said earlier about I could be an appearance in your psychotic episode, okay, then because it's true, I could be an appearance in your psychotic episode, or we could say in a nicer way, I could be an appearance in your dream. So if I'm an appearance in your dream, and everyone who is appearing is an appearance in your dream, and then you say, well, I know that I ate a chocolate bar 5 minutes ago because I had witnesses and they can confirm it. Well, yeah, but those witnesses are appearing in your dream. You're dreaming them. Of course they're going to confirm your story. You see, because the whole thing is organized around your belief. So this is good news and bad news. It's bad news because this is, tread carefully. We're we can go various directions from here. We can we can go in the direction of the psychotic episode, which we don't want. Okay, so we don't want a psychotic episode. But what I'm saying is we can certainly this if we really let this start to sink in, if we really start to look in this way, if we're really observing carefully, we start to see that what do I have to stand on? What is the foundation of my experience? And we see that the foundation of our experience up to now, at least, has been belief, purely belief, only belief, nothing other than belief. And so this starts to unravel, and we realize I have nothing to stand on when I'm, at least based upon what I thought reality was composed of, reality turns out to be completely insubstantial. It's nothing other than belief. So it's unraveling, and it's like, like we've been standing on what we thought was firm ground, and then it turns out it was only a cloud, and then we're falling, and we can be scared. And then we have a psychotic episode. So we don't want to go in that direction. So I would invoke at this point, let's add to our hypothesis, okay? Just because I think it will be helpful. We don't know. The thing about a hypothesis is we don't know that it's true. I mean, a hypothesis is it's just a guess. So we're not claiming that this is true. We don't have to cling to this as if this is true. Okay, if we're really honest scientists, we're not clinging to it as truth. It's just like a bridge. So we're free to add and subtract to it. We don't have to cling to it as if it's the absolute truth. It's different from religion in that sense. Okay, most people cling to science as a religion, which is unfortunate, because that's not actually the spirit of it. The spirit of it is actual inquiry. So, but it's structured inquiry. So we're going to start with a hypothesis. So let's add to our hypothesis, okay? Just so that we're less likely to go down the path of psychotic episode. And we're more likely to go down the path of waking from a dream. And so we'll add to our hypothesis. So our hypothesis is that I am the sole constructor and maintainer of my prison. Outside of my construction of and maintenance of this prison, it doesn't exist. I am the only thing, the only one who generates my imprisonment. And we're going to add to that now and say that, and the nature of life is good. Now that's, I don't know how we could know that, but what the hell, it sounds nice, so let's just add it into our hypothesis, because I think it's going to be supportive. It's just going to direct us in a useful way, rather than directing us down the path of the psychotic episode, which we don't want. Because I hope you can see that as we're unraveling this, then it can be a little scary. It can be scary. We've perceived that life is bad. Let's just be honest about it. I mean, we've always hoped that life was good. We always hoped that there was some goodness there, but we just have gathered evidence over the years that seems to suggest that life is horrible, miserable. It's just, it's like it's out to get us, and we've got to protect ourselves with our buffer / prison. So let's instead flip that around and let's say, yeah, I think life is good. Because you know, who wants to come out of their prison only to discover that life is miserable? That's not a, it's not a, we don't want to go that way. So let's just start from the assumption that life is good. So now we're going to start looking to see, now if we're really strictly scientific about it, then we're actually looking to disprove this. Otherwise, you know, we run into the problem of we are just looking for the evidence to support our hypothesis. So we're, you know, cherry picking. But I would say, let's just observe. Okay, this is our hypothesis, and the hypothesis is just a framework that allows us to observe. So let's just observe our experience now. From this moment forward, let's just observe, and let's use this framework of the hypothesis to just give a different it's just to kind of help us get out of the groove. And we've been in this groove. We've been in this groove of this imprisonment where we just continue to imprison ourselves moment to moment. And so this hypothesis just helps us to pop us out of that groove so that we can just see a little bit more clearly rather than just seeing from this groove over and over and over. So we'll use this hypothesis as it's just a tool that helps us get out of the groove, because the tendency is to go back into the groove. The tendency is to go back into the groove, which is that it's this constructed reality, which is supported only by belief, but we kind of, we numb ourselves. We kind of just, well, it's like going to sleep, you know, we just sort of sedate ourselves so that we don't really perceive the reality of what's going on, because it's pretty painful, actually. It's pretty painful just to continue to work so hard to keep ourselves in the groove. So this hypothesis, this new hypothesis, is useful. And the reason it's useful is because the habit is so, there's something in us, and I've said this before, that's very conservative. It wants to maintain the status quo. And you see this, right? Maybe you don't see it so much in yourself, but it's easy to see it in other people. You can look at other people who you know, who you can see they're making the same stupid mistakes over and over and over. You know, it's like the statistic about the people who win the lottery typically end up worse off financially after some years. You know, it doesn't matter how much money they win. You'd think, and it's just how humans are. They think, oh, if I had $5 million, I'd be set. If I had $32 million, I'd be set. If I had $1 billion, I would be so set. No, you wouldn't. And I can tell you that you, despite what you think, you wouldn't, because the evidence is there. So that it just doesn't work out that way. People who win the lottery, they end up worse off. You think, how could that be? Well, it just is. They mismanage it. They gamble it away. They waste it on all kinds of stupid things. They buy stupid cars, make bad investments, and then they're worse off. They're in debt. You know, it's easier to get into when you got $5 million, it's easier to get into very large debt versus when they cut off your credit. When you don't have that much money, they'll cut off your credit really quickly. But when you've got $5 million, they're like, hey, you have unlimited credit. So you can get into really big debt, and some of those people end up in really big, bad situations. Or they, you know, they have drug addictions, and then they end up with worse drug addictions because there's nothing to stop it. So the tendency is to we work hard to maintain the status quo, even though it may be very painful, and we can see it in other people more easily than we see it in ourselves. But now we're using this framework to investigate our own lives with the same kind of we can scrutinize our own lives a little bit more now with this framework than we would otherwise. And we start to see, the idea here is that we can start to see what it is that we're doing, how we're working really hard to maintain the status quo, how we are working really hard day and night to maintain our imprisonment and our misery. Because we're starting with this assumption that it's not about circumstance, it's not about them, it's not about other people, it's not about the system, it's not about the government, it's not about the time and place we were born, it's not about our family, it's not about any of that. It's about what we're doing. We're just starting with that assumption and we're testing it out through observation. So we want to see our own lives in this way. And so we can, if we give ourselves permission to do so, we'll start to see the evidence. So here's one thing that I've noticed. What I've noticed is, and you can, I can almost guarantee you'll notice this for yourself, okay, is that, so I'm unhappy. I want something to be different. Something changes, and then I freak out. And I freak out, and I drudge up all of this supposed evidence about why I'm right, that I should be freaking out. But what is this evidence? The evidence is all based upon my belief, which is just based on the status quo. So it usually is, wow, I feel weird. I don't feel right. And then I come up with, I start giving it, so I've already said I feel weird and I don't feel right, okay? But then I start getting more specific because I'm looking at it from this perspective of trying to maintain the status quo, trying to keep the groove going. So then I'm saying, yeah, I don't like this at all because I feel irritable. I feel like I can't think properly. I feel depressed. So I start naming it. And then I get more and more, and then I say, well, why is it that I'm feeling this way? Oh, and now I start coming up with a list of all the things that I think are causing this. So then I start working to reorganize my life so I can get back to the familiar. So things get stirred up, I'm uncomfortable, I freak out, I work really hard, no, get back. And then everything gets back into the groove, and then I'm like, oh, familiar, narcotic, okay. I'm unhappy, but it's familiar, and I got my narcotic, so, oh, okay. Because the groove is a narcotic. So if I'm really looking at this, testing the hypothesis, I have to see, okay, I see that there's this habit of freaking out. And I see that I'm feeling the way I'm feeling. That seems to be true. I'm feeling the way I'm feeling. Conditioned mind wants to tell some stories. I'm looking at the stories. Okay, what's the basis of these stories? Not really much. Not really much. It's just sort of, yeah, all comes down to belief. The basic belief is it shouldn't be this way. This is bad. This is wrong. Something's wrong. But in reality, how do I know what this experience is? How do I know that this experience is bad? How do I know that this experience is undesirable? How do I know that what I think of as desirable is actually desirable? How do I actually know that? So it is my experience that all prayers are answered. So if I pray earnestly, I want to be happy. Then my experience is that that prayer is answered. The problem is then I work really hard to undo it because I don't see it. I don't yet see it in the way that it is. I'm still seeing it through the lens of the groove, of the prison. So I say, I want to be happy. And then life responds, opens the door, shows me that the prison was never a prison except for my own doing. And then I say, no, this is terrible. This is horrible. I don't like this feeling at all. This feels weird. I feel irritable. I feel anxious. I don't feel well. I don't feel myself. So then I work really hard to get back in, close the door, lock it up, go back to sleep. But if we've had enough of that, which we all have, we've all had enough of that. We really have. I mean, we just don't want to do that anymore because it's not fun, really. It's fun one time. It's like playing hide and seek. You know, it's fun one time. Or it's fun as long as it's like you know that it's hide and seek and you're playing understanding that, but it's not fun when you've taken it way too seriously and you found like the greatest hiding spot and nobody can find you and you're afraid to move because you don't want to give yourself away. But you're starting to get hungry and tired and cramped and you're wondering what's going on and you're now you're trapped. But you're trapped in what? In the prison of your own doing. So it's fun so long as it's a game, but it's gone beyond that. It's not a game anymore. We've taken it too seriously and we've forgotten. So we have to investigate very carefully. We have to observe and see what's going on. And the good news is that that it's like when you've been in the dark and then you go outside in the bright light, it's blinding, right? You say, oh, it hurts my eyes. But what do you want to do? You want to just go back to the dark and stay in the dark? You just have to give it a moment. Because you will adjust. So we've been organizing I'm proposing that we've been organizing our lives around a particular, well, basically a belief. Okay, so there's a frequency, an energetic frequency that we've been organizing our lives around based upon this belief. So we've been asleep in our dream, constructing this prison, and it's all around this one particular energetic frequency. And it was just it's fine. It's not bad. It's just that it's like you locked yourself in the closet trying to find the perfect hiding spot. And you did find the perfect hiding spot. Nobody can find you. But then you forgot what you were doing. And so you start taking it very seriously. And then you keep working really hard to organize around this. So you keep reminding yourself this frequency, this frequency, this frequency, this frequency. And so you're just entrained to this frequency. But I'm telling you, there there are infinitely many frequencies. And there's the phenomenon of adjustment. Now, why that is, I don't know, but we have experience of it in the mundane sense, like I'm talking about, where we're in the dark and then we go out into the light, and it hurts our eyes, but we adjust. So we have to go through that period of adjustment. We have to be willing to go through the period of adjustment where we're shifting from one frequency to another. I'm using the term frequency, but literally that's what's happening, right? There's a frequency of light. When we're in the dark, that's a particular frequency. It's a very, I don't know if it's low or high or what. It's a particular frequency though, okay? In terms of the light spectrum, it's a particular frequency. There's very little light. Then we go out into the bright daylight, that's a different frequency. Energetic frequency, literally, I mean, in a technical sense, it's a different frequency. And we are adjusting. And we experience that adjustment as uncomfortable. But we've had that experience enough that we know, it's all right, I'll adjust. But in this broader context, we aren't familiar enough with it because we haven't given ourselves that experience often enough. So we say, we have held fast to this frequency that the prison is organized around. We are constructing it by holding fast to this frequency. Like we've locked ourselves in the closet and we're not wanting to give ourselves away. So we just keep holding to that frequency. And there's a rigidity to it and a limitation, a restriction, and it's uncomfortable. But we're afraid, right? It's like if you can remember having that experience as a child, probably you had that experience playing hide and seek, and there's a certain point, there you are, you're hidden, and there's this, you know that no real harm is going to come to you, it's just a game, but at the same time you don't want to lose, you want to win. So you kind of are afraid, you don't want to get caught, you don't want to be found, you want to stay in the hiding spot until you know that you're home free, right? Then you know. But the thing is, you stay there long enough and you forget. So then you're just everything, you forget there's home free, you forget about that part. Now you're just entrained to this frequency of hide, don't get caught. And that's what has happened to us in a broader sense. That's my proposal to you. So then you can start to see how it is that you actually are free at all times. You are free, totally free, 100% free. Just like the child playing hide and seek. You're completely free. You can do anything. But you choose not to because you are afraid. Isn't that true? You're afraid. You're afraid of whatever you're afraid of. And then when things, after a certain amount of time, you say, I've had enough of this. I want some change. And you pray, I want change. And then the change begins to come about. And it's very uncomfortable because it's different, it's new, it's a different frequency, and you have to adjust. And we don't have enough experience with the adjustment from one frequency to another in this context to trust in it fully. And so we freak out, and then we work hard to get ourselves back to our hiding spot. Back into the dark, back into the prison, back to this frequency. Because it's a narcotic. It's it's so in the nervous system. It's so familiar. It's like, you know, when somebody, there's a thing that people do, you know, rocking. People when they're very upset, they'll get into a fetal position and they'll rock. Why? It's in the nervous system. It's the only explanation for why. It's in the nervous system that is soothing somehow. So we've just entrained so much to this frequency, that the frequency is in the nervous system, and it doesn't matter how functional or dysfunctional it is, it's soothing because it's in the nervous system. So we can go back and repeat it over and over and over. But we want something different. We don't want to be here in this frequency, stuck, trapped, hiding, imprisoned, miserable, frustrated, feeling like we're victims. We don't want that. So we have to see how we continue to come back to it and repeat it over and over and over. Because every time we do that, all we're doing is we're strengthening that. It becomes more and more and more familiar, and then it seems as though that's more real. And for most of us, we've done it so much that it seems so real that we actually don't even realize that that's not the whole of reality. It's just one frequency. Which is why I said it earlier, that we have to look, what is the basis of this? And we see that actually the basis of our reality, so-called, the basis of it is belief. That's all that it is based upon. So we see, what is the reference? We say, well, this is reality. And how do you know this is reality? Well, because it is, because that's what I believe. Because that's what I experienced yesterday and the day before and the day before that and the day before that and the day before that. Well, yeah, but how do you know? Well, because I believe that I did. How do you know? How do you know? How do you know about any of that? Where is all of that? It's totally made up. You have to see this. All of that is completely made up. The only thing that we can actually know for sure is this right here now. The rest of it is totally made up here now. Right? I mean, all your evidence comes from the past. All your evidence of who you are, what's happened to you, why things are the way they are, how life works, all of that, it comes from the past. But where is the past? It's made up now. It's completely self-referential. It's just a loop. You see, it's a frequency. It's just a frequency loop. It just goes round and 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 round. That's all it is. And as long as we continue to cling to that, then we just insist that this is the whole of reality. But it is self-referential. There's nothing outside of it that can support it as the totality of reality, because that's absurd. I mean, again, back to, there are people who believe that Jesus is the Supreme Lord, and there are people who believe that Allah is Supreme Lord. And by the way, there are people who have experiences of this. How could that be? Well, maybe because it's just self-referential. The more that you invest into it, the more real it seems to you. What seems sure, that would be fine.
Thanks, Jay. I just, yeah, I really get what you're saying about regarding external circumstances as creating a prison for ourselves. But I've got just a slightly different issue that I thought might be helpful and interesting to work with. And
Yeah.
that is, I'm asking myself, according to what you said, my hypothesis is about how am I making myself unhappy? How am I putting myself in prison?
Yeah.
My answer to that at the moment is I always seem to be waiting.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm trying to see how I could be using waiting, because it's usually waiting for something to change, maybe for the better, hopefully for the better.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to see, according to what you're saying,
Mm-hmm.
how could one be using waiting as a narcotic, as a
Yeah.
kind of soothing mechanism?
Sure. Yeah. Well, that seems fairly obvious to me.
Well, because it feels like a sort of anxious waiting, so it doesn't feel soothing. It feels rather uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel confused.
Well, yeah, of course it feels uncomfortable. I mean, yes, no question about it. That I would suggest that all narcotics have that quality. I mean, what is actually uh, truly, uh, what would be the right word? Um, I can't think of the right word. I mean, let's just call it truly fulfilling. Okay, what would be truly fulfilling or satisfying that wouldn't have a quality of anxiety to it
Sure.
would would not be something that has to be repeated. It wouldn't be something that we have to narrow in our focus on. Uh, it would be the absolute effortlessness of allowing. So the waiting. Okay, so you can look at how is waiting. Okay, how is it that we can use waiting as a way to imprison ourselves. And we can see, perhaps at least, that it's it is a distortion, or I would say this is probably true of everything. I'd have to look more carefully to see if that's actually true, but I think it's probably true of everything. That what we're doing is we are filtering reality through a particular frequency, and so it's a distortion. It's a narrowed band of reality. So it's not a total complete lie, but it's just very narrow. So waiting. Okay, waiting. There's a quality of waiting that is also that points back to a more, let's say, holy. It points to a quality of what is we'll just say we could say that waiting can point to its quality of openness. I'm not waiting doesn't necessarily have the quality of openness, but it points to, it has a connection to a quality of openness.
Right.
But then when but waiting itself implies that there's something happening in time, right? So if we're waiting,
Exactly.
yeah. So we're starting from, it reveals that, so if we look at what is waiting, it reveals that we are constructing, perhaps somewhat subtly so we can overlook it, but nonetheless we can see that it's true. We're constructing this box in which waiting makes sense. Waiting can only make sense if there has to be someone who's waiting, and they're waiting for something that will happen in the future.
Yes.
And then there's this anxiety because we don't know if it will or it won't happen. And our perception is that our okayness depends upon it happening or not happening, depending on what it is, you know. So when we see that, I mean, I think that reveals exactly what I was talking about, which is that we see, well, I've just constructed that. But now let's see if it's true. What's the evidence for that? So if the basis of waiting is that there's someone in time waiting for something that's going to happen in the future, and then it's going to be either good or bad. Let's just see if this is actually true. What's the real basis for this? So can we find in our actual experience, beyond our own belief, the evidence that this is so?
Yes, and I've been quite, I don't know, sometimes pleasantly, sometimes unpleasantly surprised by what I discover, which is when I'm waiting and something happens, there's something that happens goes by so rapidly that I can't catch it.
Right.
So what I keep finding when I'm waiting is nothing.
Right.
Because by the time I found it, it's gone.
Correct.
So
Which
it's
begs
a
the
weird
question,
kind of leap.
was it ever there?
Yes, correct.
I mean, because
Good
subtly, it's still, there's still this, you say it goes by, but what goes by? I mean, there you see, we still think there's something there.
Yes.
But it's like if you take some fire and you spin it around, you can you spin it around and you can see a circle, right? So you say, oh well, there's a circle. Really? Was there a circle there? Are we sure there was actually a circle there? I don't think so. I don't think there's actually a circle there. You see that
Yes.
that's just made up.
Yes, that was one of the Buddha's great examples.
I didn't know that. But that's sort of the nature of it, right? If we just look at our experience, we can see that we're in a sense we're waiting for something, and we're just waiting for something, and there's no thing. So we have to, well, we don't have to, but I think we're wise to begin to see that all along we started from the assumption that there was something.
Yes.
And that was turns out to be a false assumption, or at the very least not a wise assumption, because why would we assume that? So let's look for the thing. We look for the thing and we say, well, doesn't seem to be a thing. But then so quickly the mind comes in and says, oh, but it went by so fast. You see, it's so quick to come right back in. It went by so fast. It's always assuming that there's something. And this is why I said from the beginning, let's throw in that life is good, because otherwise we can go down, we take this inquiry, and it can become a psychotic episode, because we start to realize that there's nothing there. There's nothing. Everything I thought I was standing on, there's nothing there.
Yes,
So
thank you for that Yes, thank you for that reminder, because I was becoming, as you were speaking, I was becoming quite fearful, because it felt like facing a void.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And I, you know, some people have, that's just their, some people, and maybe just at certain stages in their lives, have a preference for the intensity of the void. You know, they just, you know, stare into the void. And I've, at this point in my life, don't, I think it's a fine line. And there's we don't want to, I don't think we want to completely ignore it, but neither do we want to make too much of it, because then it becomes a new thing.
Yeah.
And an unpleasant one at that. So instead, I really, you know, the reality seems to be that, well, okay, so this is something somebody wrote to me recently. They responded to something, one of my emails that I'd sent out, and I think I had written something about no thing. And this person, I don't remember exactly what they wrote, but they interpreted nothing as an absence, like a null. And I responded saying, no, that's not it at all. It doesn't, just because there's nothing doesn't mean that there's an absence. It just means there's no thing. That's all it means. It just literally means that the thing that you think there is not a thing. But that doesn't mean there's a null. There's still, you know, like we can say, for example, okay, where is the fire? You can't find the fire. Try as you might, you can't find the fire. But if you stick your hand in it, you're going to get burned. So just because there's nothing doesn't mean that it's an absence. It just means that it's not a thing. And our minds are so fixated on things that it's just useful for us to kind of wake up from our stupor and realize that that's not helpful. It's not truthful, and it doesn't help support the quality of experience that we want. But then we don't have to turn that into this terrifying thing where we're going to be, where there's a complete absence, and we have this crisis of, who am I? I'm nothing, and I'm an absence, and oh my God, you know, that's just another mind trip, which is totally unnecessary, because clearly this is happening, right? I mean, here we are. Even if we say it's a dream, it's still, the dream is happening, right? A dream is not a thing. We can't turn the dream into a thing, but it's still it's happening. There's an experience occurring, and that's real. I mean, according to my definition of real, in the sense that it's observable. But that's why, okay, so back to the waiting, you say it goes by so quickly. So it doesn't go by quickly at all. There's what's happening is that this is happening. And then the mind says it goes by so quickly. No, there's nothing going by so quickly at all. There's this happening. And to me, that's a really significant shift.
Yes. Yes, I can see that.
Because that turns waiting. So waiting is waiting for a thing. But then, as I said, waiting, and we can trace waiting back, so to speak, to a quality of something. We don't have the words here, but we can trace it back to a broader quality of life. And so in a sense, we can just allow, you can test it out right now, you can just notice this, what you call waiting, the experience that you call waiting. And if you allow for it to soften, and by soften I mean the insistence on trying to know what it is and what it means and where you're going to go and what you're going to get and all that kind of thing. You just let that all soften and you just are really present now. Then this quality that you previously call waiting, you might notice that it kind of expands and gently opens into what we could call awareness. So awareness without an object. Waiting is waiting for an object, but awareness without an object is just open and has a quality. I would call it bliss. I don't know that you would call it bliss. It depends on how you understand bliss, I suppose. It's not a overwhelming experience. It's not like taking psychedelics. It's not like orgasm. It's not that kind of thing. It's very smooth. It's very nurturing, and it's very continuous.
Even though objects are still being observed.
I wouldn't say that objects are being observed.
Wow.
What would you? Do you actually perceive, if you just right now allow for this experience to soften, do you actually perceive that there are objects being observed?
Yes, it seems that I can see, I am observing many objects all around me.
But what's the reference point for that? How can you say that that's true?
I don't know how I can say that it's not so.
Well, you don't have to say it's not so. I'm just saying that you don't have to. So I use this example sometimes. It's like Santa Claus, okay? You can't prove that Santa Claus does not exist.
Sure.
But do you need to?
No.
Right. So in the same way, you don't need to prove that there are no objects, but do you really need to? It doesn't seem necessary. It's only necessary if you start from the assumption that there are objects. But all I'm asking is, you said that you perceive that you are observing objects, and I said, well, what's the reference point for that? How do you know that that's true? And what I'm pointing to is just see that the only thing that could, there's no objective proof that there's an object. All that you have is belief that there are objects.
Yes, and I use certain experiences to prove that to myself. Like, for instance, touching the table.
Yeah, but you're not touching the table. You see, that's just, okay, this is great. It's great. So you say touching the table, okay? But of course you're not touching the table. That's ridiculous. I understand that's how we speak, and I'm not one to try to change the language, but it's just useful to see that it's not actually true. You're not touching the table. So you can test it out. You can close your eyes and you can in quotes, touch the table. And how do you know
Okay.
you're touching the table? You don't know that you're touching the table. That's ridiculous. You can't touch the table. There's a sensation occurring.
Yes.
Yeah, and that sensation is just occurring here, and it's just a sensation, and you don't know what it means or what it is. Now, it's functional and useful to have. Conceptual reality is functional within the context of conceptual reality. I'm not suggesting that you should do away with your ability to perceive that you can touch a table. That's great, because if I say, hey, you know, could you go get me a coffee? I want you to be able to do it safely without burning yourself. So it's, you know, it's functional to know where is the coffee, and to know that I actually mean, you know, put it in the cup and don't burn yourself and all that. It's like, that's great. But you can't touch a table because that's just not a possibility. Not in your actual experience. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yes. Yes.
So everything is in this conceptual reality, everything props everything else up. So we say, I'm touching the table. And you say, well, how do you know you're touching the table? Well, because I am. Well, okay, but how do you know that? Well, because I'm touching and I can see the table. Okay, well, close your eyes. Okay, now I'm touching. Well, I know I'm touching the table because this is what touching the table feels like. And if I was to open my eyes, I would see there's a table there and I'd see my hand on the table. Yes, but with your eyes closed, how do you know? You know, so we can explore this, and we can see that in your actual direct experience, it's impossible to touch a table. What's actually, and there's no here or there, there's just this. All of these concepts are just things that we've learned. And in fact, I mean, as far as I can tell, it's actually true. These are just impressions in the nervous system that help us to have a conceptual three-dimensional reality, so that we know what's up and what's down, what's left and what's right, what's forward and what's backward, what's table, what's not table. But it's all conceptual, and it's just impressions in the nervous system. We had to learn all of that. We didn't know that when we were first born. I mean, we have certain things that, as long as everything's functional, that let us know what's up and down to orient ourselves. But we don't, that's not a conceptual thing. That's just a functional thing built in. And by the way, that can get all screwed up. I have a friend who was, I guess it happens, I mentioned it, that it happened when she was pregnant, only because I guess it had her pregnancy was relevant to this, because I guess it happens sometimes to some women when they're pregnant. There's apparently some crystals in the ears that are responsible for us having a sense of what's up and down, and for whatever reason, sometimes when some women are pregnant, these crystals get bunched up, or I don't know what. And so she had severe vertigo. She couldn't even get out of bed for months, because the slightest movement would cause her to vomit. She would fall over. I'm laughing, it's not funny at all, but point is, we take all these things for granted, and we think this is just how reality is. We know because we know. But you take away the little mechanism that makes it work, and suddenly you don't know. You don't know which way is up. You don't know whether you're going forward or backward. You don't know what's going on. All you know is you feel really weird and you got to vomit. And so the actual reality is that we don't know what any of this is, and it's all we make it up. I would say, in fact, that we make it up so thoroughly that there's probably no limit to how much we're making it up. I mean, I think we could explore this and discover that we really are making it up entirely, 100%, all of it. And to blow our minds completely, we're making it up right now. That's the amazing thing. I mean, I say that's the amazing thing. Like, it's not amazing anyway, but that time itself is being made up now. space is being made up now. All of this is being made up now. And when we realize the implications of that, then we discover that really, truly, this prison is 100% our doing. And that, so then now this is something that may not win me many friends, but maybe it will win me a lot of friends. I don't know. But I'll actually be so bold as to say that we not only that, but when we see that we have been constructing the prison, that all of this is made up now, that we ourselves are made up now, then we have to start to question, well, who am I? And it becomes very clear that I'm not this person, I'm not this history. And then the sky's the limit.
Sure.
And that's something that we don't, on the one hand, that's, well, there's something in us that we've learned, no, don't go there, that's dangerous, that's playing God. But that's, and maybe for some good reason, because that can lead to some unpleasantness. But at the same time, I would say that there's also a certain level of maturity at which we have to be willing to see that that's just another prison that we've constructed. Because you and me and everybody here, we're not interested in playing God. We're not interested in having everybody on puppets on strings. We're not interested in having slaves. We're not interested in hurting other people. We're not interested in getting something for ourselves so that somebody else has to suffer. If we're really honest, that's what's going on now. In our unwillingness to accept the truth of who we are, that's what, in our ignorance, our willful ignorance, that's what we are constructing now. That's what's actually going on as a result of our willful ignorance. But to actually step into the truth of who we are and to admit that and live from that, I will propose, is not what we've been taught is playing God. Playing God is like a dream within a dream. That's a nightmare within a nightmare. And that's not what I'm proposing at all. I'm proposing something totally radically different than that. It's to wake up to, step by step, just start with, and we can all benefit from this, myself included, just realize, just observe, what am I doing to construct the prison? And see that waiting, as an example, see, well, what is this? Isn't it odd when we start to take a look? Well, I know I've been suffering from waiting, and I thought that waiting was somehow something I had to do something with, and I thought it was something there. I thought there was something that I had to do something about or fix or solve or something. And I look at it and look at it and look at it, and all I see, if I just keep looking at it from all these angles, I realize this is made up. This is totally made up. This is just me making up something to organize my reality, my perception around this frequency of separation, time, waiting, deficiency. But when I really look at it, and I look at it from all these angles, I realize, well, there's nothing there. And so then what is revealed is what's underneath that, right? Because the waiting was, in some sense, superficial. When we can kind of clear that out, then what bubbles up is, well, wait a second. No, I know there's a problem with me somehow. It's got to be a problem with me somehow. Something got to be wrong with me. And it just keeps coming up. It bubbles up in all of these different ways, whether it's, well, any number of ways. I mean, there's so many ways that it can come up. It can come up as, all the evidence of what a terrible person I've been in my life. It can come up as, you're so arrogant, you're going to be playing God. It can come up as, well, but you've got physical pain. It can come up as, whatever, anything. So many different ways that it can come up, and we can just look at each one of them in the same way. Just, okay, sure, I understand this is what my habit is, to just settle for this interpretation, to accept some truth here, but I want to look and see, I want to observe what is the actual basis for this. How do I know for sure that this is true? And every time, at least every time I look, and I hope everybody here will take me up on this invitation to look, just observe over and over and over your experience and see what is the basis of this. And I'm certain you will see it's just belief, it's self-referencing. So then we really can just let it go. If you let go of waiting, then what is revealed? I mean, I'm proposing that what's revealed is awareness.
Yes, I can see that awareness is revealed. It was when you said awareness without objects,
Yeah.
that I to explore that a little more deeply.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, to me, awareness without object is just delightful. Really is. And it's so, I was reading about, I was reading a book about Taoist practice, and in this book, the author was talking about how Taoist practices use the sort of fundamental basis of Taoist practices, and I can't remember what he called it, but basically awareness without an object is sort of the basis. And then they add to that, so it's like a two-pronged approach. And then they add to that what you could call creative visualization. And so it was interesting for me. It was nice to read that because a lot of times people want to have, there are a lot of hardliners, and they say, well, it's just this one thing, just one way, my way, and it's just, people talk about it's awareness of awareness, just awareness of awareness, awareness of awareness, awareness of awareness, and it's fine, but kind of sucks the life out of it a little bit. And I think it's nicer if it's counterbalanced with something else, and then can help to appreciate the qualities of awareness as blissful, as delightful, as enjoyable, as luminous, rather than it becoming this sort of like dead thing, which my experience is sometimes has a tendency to become sort of lifeless when people just are obsessed with that as the one thing and nothing else is allowed. It's just not my inclination, I guess. I'm more of the, I don't seek to get rid of the dream. I think the dream is nice, and I think that that having also awareness of awareness, or awareness without objects, is fundamental in discovering the potential for delight within the dream. So I don't think that we're going to find, I think it's essential. I don't think we can do without it. I don't think we'll actually find pleasure within the dream otherwise, because otherwise we're just grasping for things within the dream to give us fulfillment, and that doesn't work, as we know.
So when you speak about awareness without objects,
Yeah.
you're not meaning something like facing a blank wall, but it seems to me you mean something like facing the so-called objects in one's very existence without a conceptual overlay, without labeling, that sort of thing?
I suppose as a technique, that is one technique that can help. Fundamentally, though, I wouldn't say that. So I wouldn't. How do I say this? That could be a technique, but it's not the experience itself. So the experience itself is not in contrast to anything. It's not facing anything. It's the what's that Zen? There's a famous Zen koan. What is your original face? The face before you were born, or something like that.
Yes.
So it's like that. I mean, you know, you can't step out of this in order to see it. It's a direct perception.
Yes. Yes.
So that's it. And to me, once you could probably discover this a million different ways. I mean, or more. I mean, it's probably infinitely many techniques and paths and pointers that can point you to awareness without an object. Once you have a clear experience of it, though, you don't really need the technique. You just I mean, let me see. I mean, the fastest, most direct way is just stop. Just stop looking for anything, or grasping for anything, or moving toward or away from anything. Stop making any effort at all. So just for now, in this instant right now, just don't make any effort. And you can notice how you are, as you make no effort, then you probably become increasingly aware of the subtle impulses of effort.
Definitely.
But then as you become aware of those subtler impulses, probably becomes clearer what is aware, and that you recognize that you are already that. You are aware. And this awareness is not an object, and it doesn't require an object. So to me, that's the simplest, most direct way. But there are many different ways that people point to it. But for me, my experience is just resting as this without making any effort it's really delightful. And then just observing everything springing forth from this is pleasurable. And And in some sense, you know, that I guess you could say that's all. I mean, that's all that's really needed. You don't need to do anything else. I mean, that in and of itself already offers pleasure and contentment and happiness and peace. And it's unconditional. It's available at all times, regardless of the conditions, because when you're not aware, it's not dependent upon conditions. So no matter what's going on, this is always true. And my personal inclination is also to complement that with the shaping of the dream in more, or the creation in more ways that are more pleasing. You know, I personally I just have preferences. I prefer harmonious interactions rather than war, for example. So I find that I find pleasure in exploring that as well. But that, to me, that springs forth from the awareness as the foundation.
Very good. Thank you. That feels much clearer.
Good.
Thank you.
Glad to hear it. Thank you. So we got, wow, hour and 45 minutes. Anybody else? And I didn't say it before, but this is going to be on YouTube. So if you speak, it will be in the recording.
I had a question over there, but it's gonna, I realized the time. What you've said this morning, again, is just music to my ears, because it seems like a few people I have listened to, I'd like to say many, but it's really only a few. It makes it sound like you have to sit with the feelings, you have to this, you have to that. And so it feels like a lot of stuff you have to do. And I really like how you pointed to the direct seeing. I mean, when we can see that it's conceptual and it's false, and you drop it, is what I'm hearing you say, that's very refreshing.
Mm-hmm.
Am I getting that correctly? I mean,
Yep.
you have a lot of other stuff, of course, but.
I am. I mean, yes, and I would say that going back to something I said earlier on, that just be aware of the tendency to then freak out. Okay, because you have this. Well, you can observe this in relationships with other humans. Okay, you can notice that you have largely unspoken agreements with other people about how you will respond to them. And so if somebody says or does something, they have an expectation that you're going to respond in a particular way. Particularly if you've known them for a long time and you've responded in that way pretty consistently. So then if you don't, okay, so like as an example, somebody says, they say, my boss did this thing and isn't that terrible? And you have an unspoken agreement that you will commiserate with them. Oh yeah, that's so terrible. I can't believe that SOB always doing that. He did it last week. He did that the week before that. You deserve better than that. I can't believe that they still haven't given you a raise, and blah blah blah. So now you test it out. This person says, my boss did this thing, and if you just say, oh, you just look and see what that person will do. That person's gonna get all upset with you. What's wrong with you? Why aren't you doing what you're supposed to do? You're supposed to be saying these things. So we're the same within ourselves, because we think there's one person here. There's, I don't even know how many, there's hundreds, thousands of people within the psyche, right? And they're all, and they've got these relationships. So one says this thing, and then the other one's supposed to respond this way. So you've got, so like everything is all propping up everything else to maintain this structure that matches with your belief of how life is. So then you make one change by one, one voice in your psyche says, I can't believe this, blah, 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 blah. Poor me, I'm a victim. And this other voice in the psyche that is supposed to do its little part to prop up the whole thing. If it doesn't, right, if you're actually letting go, then at some point in this whole, there's a whole process. If any point in that process is not, it's like I used that illustration before, the dominoes, you got all the dominoes lined up in this intricate thing, and you tip one and then they all go. But if one of them doesn't go, guess what? The rest of them don't go. So if any part of your psyche is no longer participating, so if you just see, oh yeah, that's there's that thing going again, right? That's, oh yeah, I'm observing, I see, oh yeah, there's that thing. Boy, I don't like that at all. I'm not interested in doing that anymore. So then this other little part of your psyche doesn't do its part. You just wait. You'll see the other parts of your psyche are going to start getting upset. They're going to say, oh, I feel really weird. I don't feel good at all. I don't feel like myself. I feel really uptight. I feel distraught. I feel stressed. I feel anxious. I feel worried. I'm not sure what I feel, but I know I feel not right. What am I going to do about this? And so everything's going to be on overdrive. What do I get? Well, I got to do something. I feel weird. I got to fix it. I'm not right. So I'm just saying that so that you're prepared. but the thing about it is, you see, okay, so it seems like it's unbearable when this happens. It seems like I can't stand this for another second. This is so horrible. I can't stand feeling weird like this, or in pain, or disappointed, or frustrated, or hurt, or whatever. I can't stand this. I got to do something. And it seems like, and you've got all this evidence for your whole life, because we've all done it, where we believed that, and so then we just say, okay, what do I have to do? I'll do it. Whatever I got to do, I'll do it. Oh, I got to call and apologize to that person so I can feel better. Oh, I got to eat that thing so I can feel better. Oh, I got to watch that movie so I got to do something so I can feel better, and I'll just do it, whatever it is. So we're just playing along. So we believe that this is true, that we can't stand it for one more second, because our whole life we've gone along with that, and so therefore we think it's true, right? But you can see it's just more of the same thing, where it's propped up on itself. It's self-referential. We don't actually know. We've never really tested it, so we have to be willing to test it. So if you test it out and you don't try to distract yourself or fix anything or get away from it, and you just allow yourself to carefully observe, just in a very neutral way. I mean, really imagine that you are like a reporter, and you're just observing in a neutral way, just to see what's really happening. It doesn't go on that long. It really doesn't. Once you see it, if you don't see it, it can go on for a really long time, because then it just keeps, it's like festering.
Yes.
Okay. But if you really see it, then what happens inevitably is you realize, huh, there's nothing there. I thought there was something there. I thought for sure there was something there. I was sure that this was horrible. I was just certain that this was horrible. This feeling, I knew it was a horrible feeling. But you look at it carefully enough and you just, okay, I hear you. I know you're saying it's a horrible feeling. Got it. But I'm the reporter, so I want to get clear on what is the horrible thing. Describe it to me exactly. Why is it so horrible? What about it is so horrible? I'm taking notes. And you'll see there's nothing there. Well, it's a feeling and it's happening and seems to be something, and that's like kind of all you got. There's not much, there's nothing really there. And then you'll have other parts of the psyche that will come in and say, oh, but it is horrible. It's been oppressing us our whole life. It's the most horrible thing. And you say, okay, I got my notebook out again. Tell me all about it. What about this is so horrible? And you're just observing. What is it so horrible? You do it. And there's nothing there. So then you kind of just, if you're really honest, you kind of then, at that point, you kind of just have to say, maybe I don't know. Maybe I just don't know. And then that's where it's helpful. This idea that maybe life is good and that maybe this is an answer to a prayer is useful just because it helps to keep you from slipping back in the groove. Because the groove is always, this is catastrophic, this is the end of the world, it's terrible, it's horrible, it's torture, it's painful. But you look at it and you look carefully and you take your notes and you realize, there's nothing here. It's just something. I mean, like, take a look at if you ever experience anything, actually. I mean, your mind will call it depression, anger, rage, frustration, disappointment, anything. You really take a look at it, you see, what is it? There's nothing there. What's there is a whole bunch of parts of the psyche that are all worked up about it, all uptight about it, they're all uptight. But you see, in order to maintain that posture, so again, back to it being self-referencing, you say, but I feel it, I know it's true. Well, okay, let's take a look. Oh yeah, well, there you are taking that posture, right? You notice if you're depressed, so-called, then you start to notice, well, what is this really? Okay, what is this really? And you're looking and you realize, well, oh yeah, there I'm holding this posture. Okay, well, that's kind of unpleasant. Well, what if I don't hold that posture? Okay, now let's take a look. Oh, there's nothing there. There's nothing there at all. Turns out it was the posture. You say, oh, I'm depressed, then you have a posture. Then you say, well, I know I'm depressed because I've got this posture, the feeling that I'm getting from this posture. And then it just goes round and round and round. So at any point, if you intercept, then it all starts to unravel and you realize there's nothing there. There was just me doing it.
That's really helpful.
And it can be easy. There's no reason it has to be difficult. And just say, just so that it's, I don't want to set you up for disappointment with it, is just know there's a possibility also, like I said, that there can be some parts of your psyche that get real upset, so just don't expect that it's going to be necessarily. It could be as simple as you just look, you see, done. Could be, absolutely could be that simple. Maybe, however, because it's been my experience, that look, see, and then there's still more parts that are saying, no, I'm certain there's a problem and got to do something about it, and we're going on strike. You know, if you're not going to do something about it, then we're going to make sure that you're going to suffer. And so there's sometimes is this tendency for some of us to have these habits of resistance and warfare within. And so, but the good news is doing the same process of observation works at every level. It's just a matter of commitment to it, because what can happen is, I mean, you test it out. I promise you this is true, but you'll have to test it out and report back to me. But if you are still and observant in this way that I'm describing, so long as you are still and observant, you cannot have a problem. But the instant you move and start trying to do something, you might become convinced that you have a problem. So you might think, I'm just horribly, horribly depressed. And you're convinced that you're horribly depressed. And then you remember what I said and you pause and you're just very still and quietly observant, and you're looking just to see, what is this? What is this? What am I doing? What is going on here? What is the, you know, I'm insisting there's a problem. What is the actual problem? You're just really looking. And so long as you're just observing quietly in this way, it all is unraveling and deconstructing, and you have no problem. There is no depression. It's impossible. But then you get up and you go about your day, and then you might start getting worked up again, and you feel, I'm just so depressed. So sometimes it just takes a little bit of doing. You know, you just have to have commitment to, just for as long as it takes, observing in this way. Sometimes we wish that it could be, you know, over like that. Sometimes it is. Sometimes for some of us, it takes longer. We have to just continue to have commitment to it, that every time it seems like there's a problem, we have to be willing just to observe quietly. And so long as we do, again, in that moment, there's no problem. It's impossible. So that's to me, that's the good news about it, is that no matter what the problem is, if I'm just quietly observant, there's no problem in that moment. And the more often I do that, the less often problems seem to present themselves. And when they do, the easier it tends to be for me to be quietly observant and therefore not have a problem. So it's both instantaneous, that there's an instantaneous release of the problem, and in a progressive sense, there seems to be also a tendency toward fewer problems, smaller problems, more enjoyment, more peace, more happiness, more ease in life. And I will say, because this is something that has happened for me, so I imagine it can happen for other people, sometimes there can be a part of the psyche that says, this isn't fair. And like it will say, this isn't fair. Why is this happening? I want to be able to go about my life and do things. And I imagine other people are doing these other things and I want to do those things. And so unfair that I perceive that I'm depressed, and then I have to stop and observe so that I don't have a problem. If you find that happening, then just stop and observe, because that also lessens over time. That because it, for a variety of reasons. I mean, for one, it doesn't matter. Who cares what other people's experiences are? You only have your experience. That's the only thing that matters. Second of all, you have no idea what other people's experiences are. And third, based on statistics, I would say most people are suffering just as much, if not more. So it's you know, count your blessings. You're probably better off than you think you are.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. All right,
I know it's late, but I know.
sure.
So I wanted to actually add to what you said, but I don't know if we have time. I just have a question. Can we add and also ask a question? Or what do you say?
You may certainly speak, and I will allow you to speak for as long as I'm going to, and then if I have anything to say in response, I will, and for only as long as I'm going to say it.
So what I was going to comment is for what you've talked all throughout. Yesterday I was standing on a bus stop and I had this obsessive thinking. I mean, it's a habit, so I get back to these obsessive thoughts again. And really, when I just let go and see and get the awareness of it, it's I saw that there's nothing there. Like it's not the thoughts. It's not it's not, everything is just an interpretation. It's just, even what I think the feeling is, what the emotion is, just my interpretation. Every basically there's just the direct experience, as you say. And even to call it a direct experience, we don't even have to call it. This there's no like, there's no partition of, there's no categories of experiences. There's just
Correct.
there's just what's happened. Nothing like this. We don't have to name it. There's just everything. Every experience is at the same level when I look at it that way. And there's just this, and I interpret it to be interpreted this, either a suffering. So I think, and the solutions come up as what do I do? What do I have to do to be okay? But what do I have to do? Because everything is actually happening is just interpretation. But when I look at it, I'm already okay with this. It's just so.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
The interpretation is basically what I saw, and I was like, okay, it's just I'm already free. So it's, when I look at it in like as interpretations, everything is just interpretation. It's just clear, like this awareness. Even to this day, I don't know exactly what awareness is, but I certainly know that I'm free when I just let go. And
right.
I just don't know what the term is, what consciousness is, what all of these terms mean. But what I know is just I just know in my gut, like when I just let go, it just feels like it just feels free. It just feels, I mean, even with the same intensity level, when I had these obsessive thoughts, it's the flavor of the experience is there's a pleasurable aspect to fear. It's not, there's a pleasurable, everything is just, it's just, yeah, it's not a burden anymore.
Right.
It's just an experience, and everything is just, I'm just allowing it to happen, and everything just flows. And that was the comment I was gonna make about what you said. I hope that's in line with whatever you've said.
Yeah.
And the question I have is so people say self-centeredness, the me story, and it's always about me. And I don't know if you heard that. Did you hear what I said? The connection was a bit lagging. I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, I still don't quite understand how that can be suffering, because we are talking about like letting go and how it's so selfish, right? We want to be free, and it's always about us to be free. And people say when there's a me in your story, it becomes suffering. And I still quite don't get it, how that can lead to suffering, how self-centeredness is suffering.
Well, it's when you let go,
Uh-huh.
is there actually Do you actually, is there any concern of a me?
No,
Right.
no. Oh yeah. Okay. I think what I thought of this is just me is kind of an escape from what I thought would destroy me, and the self-centered aspect comes from the protection. Do you think that might be?
I think it doesn't matter at all. I think the only thing that matters is the direct experience, and that you don't need to worry about the rest of it.
Mm-hmm.
Is, you know, anytime that you perceive that you are suffering, then
Mm-hmm.
that's all. Isn't that all you need? I mean, you don't need to have any theoretical understanding. You don't need to have any kind of philosophy. All you need is you now recognize that when you perceive your suffering, it's the alarm going off to remind you, and you now know to let go.
Yeah.
And you know that when you let go and you're just quietly observing your experience, that this is from this, all the clarity and insight and direction that you need arises. There's nothing else that's needed. So that's it. There's nothing else that you need.
Hmm. So there's no self-centeredness to this.
Well, I don't know. I mean, the difficulty is that it depends what we're. So in a sense, okay, if you are concerned for yourself, then in a sense there is suffering there. If we're talking about yourself as a separate thing, because then you are going to. And when I say concern, I mean concern. Let me qualify that. It's a particular kind of concern. It's a concern in which you perceive that you, as this separate thing, are the ultimate reality. Then you will experience suffering, because you will perceive anything that you sense as a threat to your separate. Anything that you perceive as a threat to your separate self will be a threat to ultimate reality. So, so in that sense, there's some truth to that. But I asked you if, when you let go, if there's really any me there, and you said no, of course not. And so this concern really is only theoretical. It's only because if you already know the answer. Whenever there is a so you have concerns for yourself. Oh, what if nobody loves me? What if I'm all alone? What if people treat me badly? What if I get sick? What if this? What if that? Blah 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 blah. Okay, that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Because you then have you know that anytime that you perceive yourself to be suffering, all you have to do is let go.
Yeah.
And when you let go, then it becomes clear that, of course, all those ideas of yourself are going to come and go. The idea of yourself is not, you can't have a thing that you can hold on to, that you can have forever. It's not going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So of course that's going to change and come and go. That's its nature. That's the nature of this reality. It's always in motion. It's impermanent. There's no thing there. So you know that if you're clinging to some idea of yourself for your happiness, that you're going to be unhappy. But then all you have to do is let go. You let go, and it becomes clear that, oh, here I am. You don't have to think this, but it just becomes clear. Here I am. that idea of myself is not, doesn't matter. The idea of myself can come and go.
Yeah.
So all that happens is it just takes away, every time you let go, it just unburdens you of your ideas of what you need in order to be okay. Because what's apparent in this moment is whatever I thought I needed, whatever I thought were the conditions for my okayness, it's obviously not true, because right now, here I am. And so this is I look at it as a valuable life skill, because you will experience challenges in your life. And I see this as the most valuable life skill, because it offers you a way in which to meet all of those challenges.
The past couple of weeks, 3 weeks since I've told you like about like just stopping, like doing nothing, and I don't know if you remember that episode of when and so I have the same experiences, underlying experience, but I'm not calling it anything, not trying to get away from something to get to something. And when I stop doing all of that, it's, yeah, definitely I see physiologically as well as mentally, things don't affect me anymore.
Right.
It's just life's happening.
Right.
It's not that when something is happening I'm better, or when something is not happening I'm better. I'm okay all the time, in spite of how I think, I interpret I'm feeling. So
yeah, right. And to me, that's that's it.
yeah.
I mean, to me, that's so much more valuable than having some experience. People often want an experience. They want some experience where they're going to be, they want like a psychedelic experience. Basically, they want to go to the guru, and the guru taps them on the forehead, and then they're experiencing bliss. And sounds nice, but then what happens when the bliss disappears? Then you don't know. Then you're back into victimization. You were always a victim, in fact, in that story, because then what happens is you're experiencing this bliss, but there's, in the background, there's always this sense of, yeah, but it might go away. And then when it does go away, then I knew it would go away. Now what do I do? Got to go back to the guru. But when you know the secret, then whatever happens, here you have the secret. It may not be the thing that you thought you wanted, the experience you thought you wanted, where the guru taps you on the head. But to me, it's so much more sustainable, because you have the knowledge, you have the experience, and you have the well, let's just say the knowledge and the experience. I mean, that's kind of what matters. You have the knowledge and the experience. And so that knowledge and experience, now you are not a victim, you're empowered, and you're empowered to help yourself. You know that, okay, I'm suffering, I'm experiencing delusion. I have the tool to remove the delusion and therefore the suffering. And you apply it, or you don't. But if you apply it, then you get the benefits. And the more you apply it, then the more that you see, the more knowledge and experience that you have, because it does continue to grow. That's the other miraculous thing about it, is that it's at once totally complete and instantaneous. The first time that you, the first time you stumble into this experience of letting go, it's totally complete. It's absolutely complete, and it's instantaneous. It's not a progressive thing. You don't have to do many things over. You don't have to. It's not like, you know, lifting weights where you keep lifting weights, and at first you can't even lift a 5-pound weight, and then you can lift a 5-pound weight, and then you can get up to 10-pound weight. It's not like that. It's totally complete, and in the very first time. And somehow, miraculously, it also grows so that the knowledge expands and your experience of it expands, and you gain confidence in it, and you see more and more clearly each time, because each time it's revealing more to you.
It's the freshness aspect of it when you that I see it more now. I remember you saying it's very fresh. It's fresh right now, and
Yeah.
I get it. I see it now. Okay, what's fresh means it's not limited by my previous beliefs, my past beliefs of what it was.
That's right.
It's right now.
That's right.
When I see that it's nothing what I thought it was. It's right now. It's not even what I thought. It's just.
That's right. That's exactly it. That's very clear. That's very, very clear. That's right. That's very well said, because that's right. But you see the tendency to, like I said, it's complete and perfect in whole in itself each time. But then the tendency is to try and overlay some kind of understanding on it. We say, oh, now I know what it is. And then the next time it's like, oh, I don't know why I thought it was that. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's fresh every single time.
That's right. Yeah, very clear.
I have one more, but I don't know.
Okay.
Save it up for next time.
Yeah, maybe save it for next time.
All right. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
All right.
See you next time.
Bye.
Bye for now.